Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
On this week's episode of Tiger Turf Talk, we host retired sports turf manager Mr. Jody Gill. Jody's been a long supporter of the Brentsville Turfgrass Management Program, and it's truly incredible to have the opportunity to talk to him today. We had an absolute blast just sort of talking about everything that has to deal with his former position with the Blue Valley High School District and everything that goes into, again, sort of what it takes to be a sound, successful sports turf manager. You know, there are so many different things that come into play and so many different people that you have to discuss certain aspects with. And it's important to understand that through his work and through his time, he was able to develop this incredible relationship with not just his crew, not just the members of his team, but also the people that he worked for, you know, the principals, the administration teams, the parents, the students. You know, it's incredible to hear what he did and how he accomplished everything that he's done. And it's truly something you want to listen to. We can't thank him enough for not just taking the time on today's episode, but also for being so supportive of our students and what we're trying to accomplish here with the Brentsville Turfgrass Management Program. We hope you enjoy this episode of Tiger Turf Talk. Good afternoon and welcome to the 59th episode of Tiger Turf Talk. I'm your host, Drew Miller. Today we have on an incredible guest. We have the retired sports turf manager, Mr. Jody Gill. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Drew. How are you?
Oh, you know, another wonderful day in the neighborhood. Gotta love it, you know. Fall's winding down, not fast enough. We have playoffs coming up, so that's always good, you know. Frosty mornings and everything. Gotta love that. You know,
that's where you want to be. Yep.
Exactly. So we first met, I believe it was 2 years ago now. And I don't know if I reached out to you or you reached out to me. But I remember you wanting to come and visit us in Virginia, which was incredible. We had an absolute blast with the kids and you guys were incredible. You were in Richmond, I believe, at the time, for painting the Motor Speedway. So I kind of want to talk about that and sort of how that came up. You came with a friend. I'm sorry, I cannot remember his name right now. But I know he's with Sign Turf and he does all of the international or national speedways for the infield painting. Sort of discuss some of that. And you most recently were at Kansas, right at home, right? Correct?
I actually just left Phoenix, so that was the last one. Just got home yesterday.
There you go. Retirement sounds like fun.
It's a nice place to be.
Yeah, a little bit warmer.
Right.
Yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about just sort of everything that went into you becoming a part of that crew and how everything sort of goes into, again, such a large project, you know, even just with Arizona this past week.
Oh, sure. Well, the name you're trying to remember is Kenny Bogner, and Kenny's a good friend. I mean, I've been working with them for, I don't know, a lot of years. So when I was working full time, you know, I would just use about all of my vacation time to travel with them and paint logos at racetracks just because I love it. So, you know, now in retirement, I'm able to do that on a more full-time basis. And it's just, man, it's a lot of fun. Even when I was working, I mean, it was like therapy. And I know a lot of the sports field managers out there who paint logos tell me the same thing. It's just, they can't wait till they can, even, whether it's painting lines or painting logos, they just can't wait to get to that point because it's therapeutic. But, you know, on racetracks, obviously they're very large and lots of them. And so, you know, it's days and days of painting. And it's exactly that. I mean, you just put the music on and you just go and you have a ball. And with Kenny and Justin, his son, we have a great time out there painting. And I love working with those guys. They're very gifted graphic artists. And, you know, not only are they the painters, but they also make patterns, you know, the stencils. They do the design work, so they make stencils for most people out there, most of the bowl games. And and they're just they're great to work with. And so we do, we start the year in Daytona and move right on down the schedule up to the championships in Phoenix, where we just came from. And Phoenix, it's all asphalt. We're not painting any grass at Phoenix, but we still make it a lot of fun. Obviously, I much prefer painting natural grass. It's also very forgiving as opposed to, short grass at Daytona or, asphalt at used to be Homestead, now Phoenix. That's not real forgiving. You
Gonna say a lot of sweating, right?
It gets pretty warm too. Yeah.
And what's been incredible, again, meeting with you and him and him coming out and sort of explaining what he does. And you were talking about for the bowl games and everything, the process that goes into, again, sort of creating those stencils. It's so simple in a sense that you really don't really ever think about it. We've actually adopted some of that and done different stencils in our area for our local high schools and whatnot. We actually just did one this past week for artificial turf field. We haven't put it out yet, but we made the stencil last week. The idea of putting it on a grid, and he has just a warehouse where the grid is set up and he just ticks the points and then draws it out and makes it perfect. It's so simple to me, but how we didn't think about this. I also love how he's like, oh, I pump out about 15 of those a day. It's no big deal. I'm like, yeah, those companies make how much per stencil? And he just pumps them out like 10 a day. Solid. I got in the wrong business. It's whatever. Has there ever been one that you really loved the most? I remember hearing about SpongeBob and a couple of different crazy designs you guys came up with, which is, again, it's just so incredible with the sort of gravity of the size, being football fields big. No one really truly sees what you do on the scale. It's just beautiful, but no one realizes that it's, again, 4 football fields wide, which is just insane to me. Has there ever been a favorite or any one that, again, was maybe difficult in the sense of, again, just the mass of it?
Yeah, there have been several. The SpongeBob certainly was very unique. That was 2 large logos. So we had the SpongeBob 400 on the infield, and that was at Kansas Speedway. But on the backstretch, there's a steep slope of grass back there, and it was actually 900 feet long. And what that was the 7 faces of SpongeBob. And it was very odd because the designer from NASCAR designed that with X's in the eyes of each of the SpongeBob faces, which, you think of a cartoon and X's in the eyes, that's usually death. And so we thought it was odd. We painted it all, and it was popular. I mean, everybody loved it. We still don't understand what the X's were about, but that was certainly a challenge. It was 70 feet tall, 900 feet long. We had one guy at the base on the roadway who really just handled paint and kept the machine going. We had 2 machines going on that one. But standing on that slope, for it was 3 solid days on that steep slope was really hard on the calves. So we appreciated getting back over to the flat grass after spending 3 days on.
I would not have been able to walk.
Slope.
I would have been like, okay, you guys got to hold me up here.
Yeah, there have been times that speedway too. We used to paint Sprint on the similar steep slope. And there were some cold days in the spring when we would be painting that, and it would get frosty. So, we always start early in the morning because we want to finish by 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So paint has a chance to dry before you get too late into the evening. So, usually 7 o'clock, we're out there spraying. And I remember a time or two when it got frosty on us. We're putting the pattern down, that's a huge sheet of plastic. And frost formed on the pattern. So next thing you know, we're all just sliding down the hill, falling down on the frost. It was really kind of funny.
Oh, it's gotta be crazy. So you are recently retired. I believe it was last year, correct? When you officially retired?
Yeah, it was the end of 2020, December 30th, 2020.
Good timing, with COVID and everything. Nice time to get out of the craziness, right? You were the director or grounds coordinator for the Blue Valley school system. Um, Something that I've always been intrigued about your work there and what you guys did. And again, you still have good relationships with a guy like Mason and everything. Um, what has it been for you guys to sort of develop again a ground system in the sense of it's not just one school, but again such a large area? Because even in our county, I've sort of tried to figure out how to develop one so that we can save money in the sense of what you guys do is exactly what everyone needs on their fields, but aren't able to get because again, we don't have something in place that can do it. You know, they have to contract it out to a local company or something like that. Could you sort of just run through sort of what your job was as the coordinator and how the system sort of ran again for so many different schools in your district?
Oh, sure. So my job was much more than just athletic fields. We always we say it was just pretty much everything outside. But just to give you an idea on the structure, we had 3 coordinators in the district. We had one who was a building maintenance coordinator. We had a custodial coordinator, and then we had me as the grounds coordinator. So, everything outside and a number of things inside. We would deal with orchestra pit covers and special events. If we needed to haul chairs, we'd get involved in graduations, things like that are non-turf activities. But our primary task was landscapes, lawns, playgrounds, and outdoor lighting, parking lots. So again, like I said, truly everything outside. And there's an advantage to that. I mean, there's an advantage to that scale. And when we started there, when I say we, me and John Peterman. So John Peterman was the grounds supervisor. So he worked under me for 25 years. And, we were kind of like brothers. And I always joked that, John, there's no level here. We work together as far as I'm concerned. I don't really care what somebody says, who works for who. I do your appraisals and that's about it. Otherwise, we work together in this task. Well, we were hired on the same day in July 1996. And at the time we had 20, we had about 18 school buildings at that time. When I retired, we were up to 38 school buildings. So together, we built a lot of buildings and a lot of fields. But our first task when we were hired back in 96 was to oversee the reconstruction of a baseball and softball stadium facility that had been built poorly. It had been value engineered to the point it was non-functional. They were flat fields with no drainage, and they removed all of the important features that would make it a safe natural grass playing field for both softball and baseball. So it was tied up in a lawsuit. When we got there, it was the grass was 3 or 4 feet tall, and taxpayers were quite upset. So that was our first task. And so really our task was to get it grown in. And so we were actually sodding that in November and December, because like most projects at that time, everything was so far behind schedule, and we had to play in March. We actually hired a helicopter to come in and fly over the outfield areas, because we had sod coming from Oklahoma. So we had a helicopter hovering to try and dry that soil so that we could lay sod. We borrowed infield tarps from everybody in town so we could cover as much area as possible. But the point is, this had to happen. This was our first task with Blue Valley. The contractor had installed an irrigation system, which was a nightmare, even on the reconstruction. And so John came from a golf course background. So he's just a brilliant irrigation designer, installer, and maintainer. And I came from the sports turf background. Not a lot of irrigation experience, but man, he was on it. So the first thing he said after we got that complex open and running is, I don't ever want to supervise the installation of an irrigation system by a contractor again. I want to design and install all of them moving forward. I said, well, John, let's make that happen then. And It did. And so he became the designer and the installer, and we built over 50 fields together over that 25 years. And so those are the kinds of things we were able to do to make it possible to increase our value and increase the staffing and things like that. We really increased our worth as we went along. We started laser grading fields. The other task was to develop a Bermuda grass program. And in 1996, there was nobody growing Bermuda grass in the transition zone. So Chuck Dixon, I'm probably back up a little bit here. Chuck Dixon, an agronomist, and George Toma were actually on board. And I think they were the reason that I was hired, and probably the reason John was hired. And we joked at the time that, it's because no one else wanted the job. there were articles in the Kansas City Star talking about this Bermuda program that Blue Valley was trying to start up that was a joke. They said it was just going to fail. Bermuda grass should never be grown in the Midwest in the transition zone. And so we were actually developing a 10-acre Quickstand Bermuda grass turf farm, which we did establish and grow in, and didn't actually use it for that. The baseball softball field was being rebuilt. Again, that sod came from Oklahoma only because it was delayed and wasn't sodded until October, November. But we used that 10 acres over and over. I mean, we found a way to harvest sprigs. We bought equipment from Bermuda King in Oklahoma. We bought a sprig planter, sprig harvester, a couple of trailers, and so we were sprigging fields constantly, all summer long, and doing it very successfully for many years. And so again, that really increased our value and enabled us to do a lot more over time. Was able to increase budgets and make some structural changes to staffing. Again, because we were able to think outside the box and do some very unique things. And that's, one of the things I loved about working for Blue Valley. We were able to experiment and play and try. And I've always believed that failure is the greatest teacher. And we failed some, and we learned from those failures and moved forward. Drew, I feel like I'm rambling here.
That's what we love. We love to hear it, especially again with such a time where Bermuda grass was not prevalent. It's become such an important aspect of what sports turf managers are doing. And if you guys are the ones that started that off, it's revolutionary. It's definitely something we want to hear about. Was there anything at the time, again, and I'm not going to tell you when I was born because it's very close to that time frame that you're talking about. But was there a Bermuda grass that you were specifically looking at? Again, we have all these hybrids that have come out and everything, and now we're getting into these crazy hybrids with Tahoma 31 who are touted to be, again, last a little bit longer than the first frost. Was there anything back then that you were able to work with? And was there times where, again, Patriot was a big one way back in the day. It's crazy to say it's way back in the day now, but it kind of is, that you guys were able to implement that came into, again, sort of the front end of everything that was implemented throughout your practices?
Yeah, we saw a lot of Bermuda grasses come and go. Some stuck, some did well, and some are still doing well. We were Quickstand the whole time, and Quickstand was just a common, basically. It was it was really the only option at the time. We were not developing fields for national TV audiences or for Division I athletes, although we did have some professional soccer teams that utilized our facilities because the Bermuda grass fields were outstanding. But really, we stuck with the Quickstand primarily because that's what we had in the ground. That's what we were accustomed to. It was very fast to establish. That's not a grass anybody would use right now. It's a fairly coarse Bermuda, but for our purposes, it worked really, really well. And so we were using that Quickstand from 96 through 2005. And, very successfully, by harvesting it ourselves and transplanting it and sprigging it ourselves. We had complete control over grow-in, harvest dates. We were with local control. We could schedule around weather rather than if we didn't have our own supply, we'd be trying to arrange loads from St. Louis and then hoping that whenever they ship, the weather is cooperative. So it was nice to have control of all of those aspects, from harvest to sprigging on the fields, and then obviously having control of the grow-in was nice as well. And we tried some different things. I don't remember the varieties that we tried. We would modify the 10-acre farm occasionally, and we took a small plot and tested some different Bermuda grasses, but we always went back to the Quickstand just because it worked well for us in our application. I would say that the biggest change we made, and I mentioned we went through 2005, 6, 7, that was a period of time when Bermuda grass was struggling in the Midwest. At least Quickstand was. And I think, a lot of Bermuda grasses were for some other guys. We were having some cool summers and some really cold winters. And winter kill was a little bit more prevalent than it had been in the past. The other thing too is that, we would, when we first started the program, we wouldn't overseed Bermuda. We would just let it go dormant. The stadium football fields, we would paint. We converted a 17-foot wide boom to a 15-foot wide boom, and we would just paint it green, for the November games, and it worked great. We would just alternate. We'd make, one pass down all of the yard lines and make an extra pass down every other yard line and make it a dark light pattern. And so when you look at it, you can't tell the difference, and it still played great. We weren't like the NFL guys who were playing into December and January. If we were, well, that wouldn't have worked. But for us, with our shorter season, that worked really well. But, we being sports field managers, we want to do it better and better and get better at it every year. So we did start overseeding with ryegrasses. And I'm hoping you're teaching your students about allelopathy. Because we discovered in time that the best way to kill Bermuda grass is not with Roundup or any other chemicals. The best way to kill Bermuda grass is to overseed it with rye. And the allelopathy effect was doing a lot of damage to ryegrass. And we were not able to chemically pull it out quickly just because of budgets, and we had so many acres of it. We were trying to transition it over time. We were trying to verticut it out. And I think if we were in a position to take it out chemically a little earlier, we might not have seen such impacts. But in time, we just realized that weather was not cooperating with us, and it got to the point we were spending more on Bermuda grass than we would have if it was a cool season grass. So we started to experiment with overseeding other grasses. So we took one field and we overseeded with fescue. We took another soccer field and overseeded with bluegrass. About the same time you would overseed with rye. And both of those fields actually performed very well. And we saw no ill effects from the overseed. As a matter of fact, all of those grasses performed really well together. And so we would get into the summertime and we would see if we had a hot, dry summer, the Bermuda grass would start coming back and filling in some thin areas where it was cool season grass before. So we realized that this little experiment was working. And so what we decided to do is go ahead and we chose bluegrass for our varsity level football fields and soccer fields, and we chose fescue for our middle school level football fields to overseed all of the Bermuda grass. And we put them on a cool season program as opposed to a warm season program. We set it up with the administration, said this is going to be a 3-year process, that we can't take out any fields to convert them. We've got to keep them all in play. and set the expectations with the administration that fields are going to be a little rough for a year or two as we work on this conversion. And we were overseeding them every year with either bluegrass or improved turf type tall fescue. But the experiment worked, and it got to the point where we had a really good mix of cool season grass and warm season grass, so that it wasn't necessary to overseed anymore in the way that you traditionally would with Bermuda grass. It wasn't necessary to colorize any of the grass, but we had the effects of warm season and cool season grasses. So in the springtime, it was green. In the summertime, Bermuda grass was still there and still strong and would fill in weak areas in July and August. And then moving into October, November, Bermuda grass goes dormant, cool season grasses take over, without spending the money to take out any cool season grasses. And I think that some others coined the term blue muta in time. There are some guys in St. Louis who coined that term. I'm not saying we were first.
He's got dibs, people. You guys just took his idea. Come on, what is this?
I'm not saying we were first. I have no idea. We were looking internally at our own program. What I can tell you is that experiment worked really, really well. And to this day, those fields still have a lot of Bermuda grass in them, and still function, the way we'd hoped that they would at the time.
And that's awesome, because you don't hear the fescue a lot. A lot of people don't want to go down that road in the sense of, well, what if it costs more? You have to seed, make sure that you have all coverage, and then when it isn't covered, is there going to be a tripping hazard or something when you have bunches all over the place or whatnot? So it's great that it worked out. I also love how your job sort of allowed you to sort of, again, test these ideas and put them into play. A lot of people are expecting field playability right away, consistency throughout the year. And we do talk about it all the time, how the worst thing for Bermuda grass is ryegrass. It's funny to me because it's such a standard practice. And what we don't understand about it is that it really does take a toll on the Bermuda grass. We're lucky in the sense that in Virginia, we're able to play our season out into the end of May, which again is probably too late, but at the same time, we have the time frame of recovery. Once we can chemically remove it, we have the whole entire summer to work it back, fertilizing, aerating, all that, making sure that we have the time and able to recover from, again, not just ryegrass growing in it, but again, spraying a chemical on it that isn't just amazing for Bermuda grass, so, but yeah, with everything with that, something you were talking about before, there was a lot of things that you were able to add, like laser grading and certain things. Now, this might be a funny question for you, but on Twitter, again, this is just me observing as an innocent bystander. You guys actually received a GPS robot similar to us, which again, I'm not the biggest fan of. Thank you, Doug Wright. We appreciate it. It's a fundraising tool. My kids paint all of our fields. We use it on different schools. What has it been like for you through the years, sort of seeing that technology become such a big part of what we do? Again, don't get me wrong. I think it's pretty interesting, the technology. It's not sound in any way, shape, or form, because we've obviously used it plenty and we have our struggles just trying to get it to work. But you're talking about laser grading, you're talking about all these different things. What has it been like to sort of see the evolution of the technology you've been able to use, and how has that sort of impacted the way that you did things on the job, again, sort of to the point of your retirement?
Sure. First of all, I'm just a technology nerd. I love all this stuff. And it wasn't just that robot. That robot was actually my parting gift to the crew. That was the last thing I purchased before I was out the door. We talked about it, and we didn't know who was coming in behind me and if they would be supportive. So John and I talked about it and said, okay, these are what are the most important things you want before I go? And so we bought them, and they love it. But that's really not the only piece of technology that we've used over the years. We were able to, and again, this was because of the support we had with the administration there at Blue Valley. We had a pretty solid drone program. We actually had 2 Phantom drones one equipped with an NDVI camera. So we were able to use that drone to kind of forecast issues that we might have on the fields in the summertime. You mentioned the laser grader. We actually purchased a 8 foot wide laser grade box. We would laser grade fields in house. We purchased a GPS rover. The original intent of that rover was to go out and map drainage structures and light poles and curbs, and utilities. So, we would have a utility marking program in the wintertime. We'd have, one call come out and locate utilities. We'd go out and GPS all those utilities. So we could just pull them up anytime and know where those were. So that morphed into, hey, can we use that as a layout tool? And so we figured out how to use that to lay out fields. So, we'd go and lay out manually, paint a field, and then go and get all the corner points in the GPS unit. And the thing that was so impressive about this GPS rover, it all started with the sales pitch originally. So this is kind of funny. Bob from Laser Specialist came out and he walked out into a field and he took his wedding ring off and he tossed it down on the field. And then he got the GPS coordinate. This was grass that was 3 feet tall. Okay. And then we walked away. We went hundreds of yards away. And he said, I'm going to find that. I'll have no trouble getting back to it. So we took the rover back and it took him right to that wedding ring. And he stuck the bottom of that rover right in the middle of the ring. And there it was. I said, okay, that's the cat's meow. And can you still hear me? I'm getting a call here.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
You're there? Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
So I was very impressed with that tool. So, we purchased that technology. But getting back to the field layouts, so we used that for laying out fields. So then we learned in time how to modify that field. We could turn it, we could rotate it. And it's basically the same technology that the robot runs off of. It's RTK, GPS signal. And so we were able to use that device to lay out, just get, points on the field. And then the guys we'd have one person that would go and lay out the points. And then we'd have a string crew. They would come back and they would just connect the dots with string and paint the field. So the layout didn't exist anymore. We were using it for lacrosse, for soccer, football, all of the track markings, discus, javelin, some of those being very difficult. So that was a very valuable tool. Then we purchased the Pix 4D computer program, which would enable us to convert the data from the NDVI camera into usable data that we could use to forecast problems on the field. We used that for modeling. We could fly the drone over a field using Pix 4D, and we could calculate how many cubic yards of material would be in a pile of dirt or rock or whatever. So that technology was just amazing. We could do aerial mapping. I could talk for hours about that stuff, but I think it's very important to really embrace that technology. Another one we never got into, but I was hoping we might. I guess I didn't hang on long enough, but autonomous mowers. What I had envisioned with autonomous mowers is not to replace people, but to enhance people's jobs. I think most sports field managers would agree that, look, we're having a hard time finding people who want to sit on a mower for 8 to 10 hours a day. That's not really a real desirable position. But imagine having a guy who's sitting on a mower, but he also has a control panel on his mower, and he's got 2 or 3 autonomous robots that are working with him on this site, and he's controlling those while he's running. Let's say it's a wide area mower, a batwing mower, something like that. So I do think that kind of technology is not something that would necessarily replace anyone, at least on a public facility like a school. We're not going to go and throw a bunch of autonomous mowers out there and walk away and have the kids play.
It hit 3 kids. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that, if you're a mower operator and you've got control of 2 or 3 autonomous mowers on the site, well, your value just went up. And so I think it's an opportunity to enhance our job. So, it's my hope that your students will embrace that technology and not be afraid of it, because it really can make things easier for us in the long run.
Absolutely. I mean, we've discovered, especially on our high school sites, when we can just have the robot going, we can focus on the designs. We just posted something about the Red Wolves at Garfield, one of our high schools. Is brand new mascot for them this year. It was one of the coolest things we did this year. And the robot was going the entire time, save us some time, and we can focus on the stuff that they're very interested in as the fans, obviously. But something that, again, I agree with you with autonomous mowers. One of the big places I feel like that they can sort of be implemented is college campuses. When you think about the number of guys that have to be on a mower on any given day, the only thing I can say is I don't know if kids will behave themselves around them and be playing with them, but at the same time, it's a great place where, again, you were saying, they can have control of these things. If you have one focused on a big area, and then you have the autonomous mowers going in areas where, again, you really wouldn't want an operator, maybe it's like a steep slope or something along those lines, where these things can take over in a sense of being an aid. I think it's perfect, and definitely something that would be helpful in the long run, but sort of with everything, a little shift in subject. One of the big things that goes into, again, a school district is just the overall planning, and the day-to-day with your crew. Could you sort of discuss what went into your sort of annual plan of focusing on, we have a crew here, we're focusing on baseball, soccer, whatever it is at any given time. And how did you sort of keep those guys sort of engaged, working the entire time, ensuring that they got the job done to the standard that you set for them? And what was that sort of like over the years, and how have you seen people come in and maybe even move on to another job where they're successful at maybe a higher level or a different place, and what that experience was like for you?
Sure. I always felt like I was a better people manager than a sports, than a grass manager. And I still believe that. I don't feel like I was that great, but I loved working with people and motivating people. But as a coordinator, you're thinking more long term. My job was to look, a month out, a year out, years out. Whereas John was really the operations guy. His job was to think, 5 minutes from now. And so we kind of kept our roles separate in that way, and that made life much easier. As far as motivating people, COVID is probably a great example. So thinking back to March of 2020, our spring break got extended. Suddenly spring break goes by and passes. We're hearing all of this about COVID, and then suddenly they're going to extend spring break another week. And then it turned into, probably in your case too, okay, they're going to just start paying staff to stay home until we figure out what is going on here. But the only exception to paying staff to stay home was us. We still had 1,300 acres and 40 buildings that we had to worry about. This was springtime. Grass was growing rapidly. The first initial discussions were, well, we'll just let the fields go. And I said, okay, you want to let fields go and let lawns and landscapes go? And then, how long are you going to delay your season when this is over next week or 2 weeks? And we come back and we have these messes on these fields. You want to play right away. You expect, high level of landscapes in these buildings. So it was decided, okay, well, yeah, the grounds crew should probably keep working, but we're going to set some strict protocols, nobody in the buildings, and, you'll clean your trucks and clean your equipment. And, and I said, well, wait a minute. nobody in the buildings. Where are we going to use the restroom? And so little things they never even thought about, because everything else is closed. And so, I was really afraid that all of our crews are going to say, no, wait a minute, you get 2,500 employees here, and most of them you're paying to stay home, and you expect us to come to work. But none of our guys argued with it. They were thrilled to come in and provide that support. We did a lot of unique things. We've set up some creative schedules, and really just kind of encouraged them to come in and made them realize, look, we really are critical here. So between John and I and Caleb Clements, we were able to motivate them to come in and do the job. And we made it fun. We're going to make the best of this situation. And, I got to go mow. I ran a route with a wide area mower. Man, Drew, I had the time of my life, because I never got to mow. So I had a route to like 3 or 4 buildings and truck and trailer and a weed eater, and went out and ran the routes, because there was nobody in offices. There were no meetings. There was nothing other than Zoom meetings. So I got to go and mow. It was wonderful. There was no traffic. There was nobody on the roads.
So, you gotta love that. That never happens, especially here in Northern Virginia.
Just, make the most of the situation and do the best you can with it. But I take pride in a lot of the guys who have moved on. I mentioned Caleb Clements is director of grounds, I think is his title, at North Kansas City School District now. So he just got that job not long ago. One of other guys is a groundskeeper at KC Sporting. So we've had some people that have moved on to other jobs, and I love that they still call me. They'll call and ask for advice, and it's just so fun for me to be able to talk with them and help them and encourage them and continue to work with them, because I do miss it. I miss them all.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what happens when you're a great mentor. That's always a good thing when they keep calling you. Sometimes you're like, hey, just give me a second, okay? And we'll call me back next week or something. But I got a call from one of my students. He was like, what do I do? I'm like, okay, just breathe. I need to finish class real quick and then call me.
Right.
Back, okay? Give me 2 seconds, please. Okay. But again, with everything, what would you say was sort of your fondest part about your job? There are so many different things. And again, we talk to different sports turf managers at different levels. And again, whether they're managing one field, managing a complex or whatnot, you're managing so much more than that. People don't quite understand with the school division. You have your landscape of X amount of schools here in Prince William. We have 111 schools. So our landscape guys are in charge of all of that. They're in charge of all the irrigation on all of our stadiums and practice fields and everything at every single high school, middle school, everything, and a lot of our newer schools that have been built, land irrigation's built in with litter landscape. So there's like 3 or 4 guys in charge of all of that. And I feel like, again, you guys had much more of a sound system set up there. But there's so much that goes into it at such a large scale. What would you say has been your fondest memory and fondest thing to do when it comes to your job there?
Interestingly, one thing I loved is playgrounds, playground design, working with PTAs and PTOs and school administrators on designs for playgrounds, and working with the kids too, and getting an idea what they like to do. So I had the opportunity to do playground design, and that was really fun. Some of the funnest days were when we would install a new playground over the summer, and the kids would come back to school. And so, I actually would enjoy going and watching them play on the playground, and, ask them what they think about it. And, they follow back with feedback on it, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. We'd install a new playground, and teachers would be up there on it. We switched to what we call a cable climb system, as opposed to the old post and deck. And so when we've put in the first cable system, parents and teachers looked at us and said, "Are you trying to kill the children?" We said, well, no, it's perfectly safe. And so I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but these are just a series of
I do.
tight
I believe it.
cables, and they climb on these things. What we were finding on the post and deck playgrounds is we had more injuries on the post and deck because they're long ramps and kids would run on them. And then they would wind up running into each other and have head injuries. Well, on cable climb systems, they're climbing very safely and deliberately. You notice that, they watch their hand grip the cable. They watch their foot step up on a cable, and another hand grips the cable. They're moving slowly and deliberately. But we had 0 injuries on these cable climb systems. That was a different aspect of the job that I really enjoyed. Another one was really studying the safety surfaces, not only of synthetic fields and natural grass, but almost playground surfaces. Understanding where we needed to be from a standpoint of safety. Here's an example. We had shredded rubber on playgrounds for years. Okay, it's a shredded tire. Okay, it almost looks like it's just a ripped up tire if you're familiar with those. And then back in I think it was 05, 06, we had a series of fires. We had arson fires on some playgrounds. So we had 3 that burned up on July 4th weekend. Again, it was 05 or 06. And that was a significant loss. So another unique part of my job was working with the fire department to find a way that we could develop a playground that wouldn't burn. So, I would go and find different options for surfaces, go to the fire training center, and they would set up a burn. So we would set up parameters where we could try and burning the system and see if it would continue to enhance the fire and get to the point where it was getting out of control. So we found out that a nylon synthetic turf would pretty much extinguish itself. Even we would use gasoline to start a fire, and it wouldn't burn. So what we did is covered all of the rubber surfaces with a 1 inch or 2 inch pad, depending on the height of the accessible surfaces on the playground, and then go over the top of all these playgrounds with a nylon synthetic turf. And we really eliminated the fires. We had attempts at fires. But the point of that is that's something totally different. And I had a ball working with the fire department trying to find a new surface that was still safe and would not wouldn't burn. So there's always aspects of the job. I love the training part of the job. I think back to the sound systems of stadiums. That's something that our crews had to know, the sound systems, the lighting systems. We were the ones that had to maintain all of that. If it wasn't working, then they came to us to figure it out. So we learned a lot beyond just sports surfaces and sports fields, for sure.
So again, you were talking about being able to sort of operate beyond, again, just turf and everything, and working with again such a diverse group, that a lot of turf managers don't really get to when it comes to, again, working with parents, teachers, the school board. It seemed to me that you had a great administration that was very supportive of what sort of your mission was. Could you sort of discuss that relationship and how you sort of developed that over the years, again, with such an incredible plan to be able to add such big things? Again, laser grading is like impossible to do around here in Northern Virginia, which it's such a travesty, when you can't get a laser grade more than, a 3-hour drive, to come down and help us out. What was that kind of like, and how did you develop that relationship over the years?
Yeah, it started with trust with the administration. I would go to them with some of these thoughts and ideas, and most administrations would look at you like you're crazy and say, just go do your job and stop having these thoughts. But some of the things we did were completely off the wall, and what would typically be a wild idea. And we just had an administration that said, well, let's try it. Let's go for it. Let's see if it'll work. What do we have to lose? Obviously it cost us, excuse me, it cost us time. We would have to spend extra time doing some of these things, but they worked well. So I think it really was all a matter of mutual trust between us and our administration. Knowing that we were going to do what we said we were going to do, and the same back from them. And that's everything. When you have that mutual trust, man, the sky's the limit on what you can do. Always had support. I mean, there were some tough years. I mentioned the Bermuda Grass troubles in 05 and 06. I mean, there was a time when I was about done. My problem was dealing with coaches. Coaches were just furious at some of the conditions. When Bermuda Grass turns on you, it's not pretty. And it was a period of time that wasn't pretty. And so throughout that, I had full support from our administration. So that was important for us and for all of our crew. They knew that we were going to work our way through it. We were going to solve the problems, and we were going to come back with great fields and facilities like we'd always had. So I think that's probably the most important thing, is having that trust and confidence in each other. So as long as you can develop that trust and confidence and cooperation, gosh, there's not much you can't do.
Couldn't agree with you more on that. And you personally, you took sort of that idea and the trust and confidence and took that to a whole new level when you started working with the STMA. And that's, again, the reason we met was you were extremely supportive of what we were doing here at Brentsville. And again, I can't thank you enough for all of that and always being there and always answering the phone when I call, but with everything, what was it that sort of brought you to the STMA, and what has been your experience again, working again at the highest level as the president, and even before that, at the time that led up to that, and now as the immediate past president? How has that been for you, and what has sort of driven you towards, again, working with such an important organization in the industry?
Oh, the first conference I attended, when I was able to just strike up a conversation with major league groundskeepers and NFL groundskeepers, and some of the guys from Division I schools, I was hooked. I mean, here I am. I'm just a high school guy from the Midwest, and to be able to talk to these guys, people I've looked up to for years, and here they are. They're right here, and they're willing to talk to me, and and talk at my level, and not talk over my head. I mean, I was hooked with the organization at that time. I thought that was the greatest thing ever, and that had never changed. And I just knew then I wanted to get more involved with this organization. But I had some STMA mentors along the way, and Troy Smith and Abby McNeil, Mike Trigg, Mike Andreessen, just a number of people that I met along the way who encouraged me to get into board service. I've always been active in our chapter, the MOCAN chapter, and we had a pretty solid group of people involved in the chapter. But taking that step to get involved at the national level was not anything I ever thought I would be able to do. But just having the support and encouragement from not only those people, but everyone else was priceless. And so I hope that I can encourage others to do the same. And that was fun to talk to your students and encourage them to get involved, whether it's STMA or GCSAA. Get involved in the professional organization and do what you can. Be on committees, be active in the local chapters, and that's how we enhance our industry and these organizations, is by getting involved. It takes all of us to work together to make our industry better. And so I was fortunate to be able to move into some levels and to be able to move on to the board. And what an amazing experience that was, just to work with some great people on the boards. And when I first came on the board, Mike Andreessen was president. Just to watch him operate it and watch them run meetings, I mean, wow, man, that was really motivational and exciting. And I learned so much just being a part of those meetings. And then, and having the encouragement and an opportunity to run for Secretary Treasurer. I mean, I ran twice and lost twice. The last two times, and then kind of stepped away for a few years, and then was encouraged to run it for a third time for president. And so I thought, boy, if somebody feels like I could do that job, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run again. And third time's the charm, I guess. And was elected Secretary Treasurer, and then moved through the process to become president. And that was definitely the highlight of my professional career, to be at that level and to work with all of these people at the STMA. So again, I just encourage everyone I meet, just get involved. This is a great organization. Certainly very worthy.
And I love how you sort of said it all started with, again, just a good relationship, with just random people. Because again, that's been sort of our experience with this podcast, with everything. I mean, being able to meet people like at Wimbledon and all of that, it's been insane. And with this industry, I don't think there are many like that, where they would answer the email or answer the phone when called upon,
Right. Right.
What has your experience been like, again, just overall creating these relationships? You talked about your mentors in this STMA space, but what has it been like for you to sort of, again, maybe it's grow your network in a sense, but sort of grow just, again, relationships throughout the years with just through the STMA? It's just one organization. We talk about the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's been been so helpful to have people that I could call on with questions, concerns, or especially when we started the Bermuda Grass program. I didn't know anything about Bermuda Grass. That was certainly a challenge, but had a number of people down south that I could talk to and not have to repeat some of the same lessons, but instead understand how they did things and how we could do it better. So it's those relationships that really help you to enhance your job. And so those are valuable contacts, and it's hard to function without them. You really need those people. You really need that network of people that you can count on. And I'm just thrilled that I can still be in some people's network in a retired position. So I can't wait to get to the conference this year, just to see some old friends and just be a part of it again.
Yeah, we're excited for this year. We're actually going to be bringing 5 kids down, so it'll be really
great.
It'll be really fun for them to experience what we've been experiencing for years now.
Right.
And we are taking 5, I think 6 maybe kids out to GIS out in San Diego this year too. So it's been sort of a whirlwind of opportunities for our students. And we're really excited again to sort of see that stuff come to fruition, especially after the year with COVID and whatnot. It's really exciting to be able to do that. Hopefully we'll be able to see you there,
Count on it.
Yes, sir. I'm always. With everything, again, as someone who has been such a prominent figure in this industry, again, being the president and taking the time to, again, put forth so much of your time voluntarily, what have you seen sort of the growth in our industry? Maybe it's STMA, maybe it's something different, but what is it that you've seen that's been the best growth, and what do you see in the future sort of being the next step in our industry moving forward to better maybe the next generation or bettering the current workforce in sports turf management?
Well, we talked about the technology earlier, and I really believe that that's number one. You're not going to stop technology. Technology is going to continue to evolve and get better, and we've got to embrace it and find ways to use it to enhance our jobs, to enhance our industry, and not be afraid of it. We've got to embrace change and find a way to adapt to new situations. We've got a lot that we're dealing with, across the country, from new regulations to, losing some pesticides to labor issues, budget issues, a lot of things that we have to deal with moving forward. And we're not the only industry dealing with it. But that's something that we need our network of folks out there to help us to deal with these things. So I think that moving forward, we just need to really enhance that network and keep people in our circles who can be positive influences and help us move through some of these issues.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. Now here's the real question, not turf related, not anything related. How does it feel to be retired? My father, and he'll hate me for saying this, he retired last year, and we can't get him out of his recliner, but that's just him. How is retirement for you with everything? Obviously it's well known that you are a pilot, and it's really cool to see sort of having that sort of outlet in a sense to what your career was and everything. And what an incredible talent, I mean, if I got in a plane, everybody would die. Sorry. But how has it been for you to be able to sort of take a step back, recollect? And obviously you're still way involved when it comes to retired people, being able to work with Bogner, right? Is that right? I think I said that right.
Yeah, with Kenny.
Kenny, that's the name.
First of all, I hate the word retirement. And,
I apologize.
My wife retired also at the same time, and we are having a ball. We're actually calling it a reboot as opposed to retirement. And we're still very active. We've got a little business that we're working on, and we're going to continue to launch in the spring. We're painting fields. My wife Tammy's a rock star, man. She's we'll paint fields and logos for high schools here locally. That's kind of funny. We did work over at the Chiefs practice facility this summer. The guys at Chiefs had to go to training camp, and there was a company that was shooting a commercial in one of the practice fields. So they asked us if we would go and paint the field for them. So Terry Lee and Doug Schellenberg were there still, managing things. So Tammy and I went to paint one of the fields. So Terry Lee they're taking bets. Tammy went and told them we could do this in about 3 hours. And they said, there's no way that the two of you are going to lay out that field in 3 hours. And we're doing a full field with borders and numbers and everything. And so Tammy said, okay, we're going for this. So Terry and Doug were trying to delay us. They'd come out and talk to me or come out and talk to Tammy, and Tammy would say, hey, get back to work. So at one point, Tammy's rolling up string, and she's got like 3 or 4 marking flags in her mouth, and she's walking as fast as she can. And then she grabs a number stencil to move it up to the next one. And so we're having a ball. We're, like I said, we're staying busy and doing some traveling. The NASCAR thing keeps me busy as well. So it's really not retirement. It's reboot. We're just kind of working on the next thing, whatever that's going to be. Because I'm not built to sit in a recliner. I can't do it. But it gets to the point when you've been in public service for 30 years, there comes a point where you say, okay, it's time to move on. And that time came for me, and I realized they don't need me anymore. I felt like I was in their way. It was time for me to step aside, let John take over, let some of these other guys take over. And that was the best decision I ever made. So, once you realize that time if you're fortunate enough to be able to do it early, it's a great feeling to be able to do that. So yeah, we're having a ball. My job this last year has actually been renovating our house. That's been my primary job. And Tammy's my project manager, so I've still got a pretty long punch list of things, and she reminds me every day that items 46, 62, and 90 are not done yet.
Oh, that's a wide range of lists. Jeez.
It's a pretty impressive list.
I
we're
actually
getting there.
I contacted you when you guys were heading to Italy. How was that? With everything. I mean, Italy is something to see, and it's incredible. And my brothers have gone, and they like to talk about how they got to go all these different places. How was it for you guys?
Oh, it's fantastic and true. There was nobody there. They were open to travelers, but people just weren't traveling. We were in Pompeii. We're in the Forum, and it was just the two of us. Normally, the Forum of the lost city of Pompeii is packed with thousands of visitors. It was the two of us in there taking selfies, and and then we went to the top of. So we had Vesuvius in the background, and we could see Vesuvius, and we hiked up the top of Vesuvius and looked down over Pompeii. And, just had a great time. I mean, the food, the wine, it was an incredible experience. And I would encourage anybody that has the opportunity to consider traveling. But, this may be the right time to go, just because not that many people are headed on overseas trips right now. So
you got a list of places you want to see?
Oh, we're talking about going to Austria next year. So I don't know. We're still kind of sorting through where we want to go next.
So my
we'll
question,
see.
Austria, you want to see, you will obviously want nice weather, but at the same time in Austria, you kind of want to see the Alps in the winter, that's where my sort of, which time do you really want to go?
Yeah, the research where you were thinking, it sounds like September into October is a pretty good time to head over there to get the best visuals. So I don't know. Richmond may be out again next year. Well, I'll be there in the spring, so I'll contact you over there in the spring.
Yeah, for sure. No, that would be awesome. But well, I want to just say thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a blast. It's been great to catch up with you. I'm excited to see you down in Savannah, actually see people for a change, it'll be great, with everything. And again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time.
Oh, happy to. It was good talking to you.